everything. When we're defined by the shape of our face. When we're ashamed by the size of our waist. When we're imprisoned by the form that we take. And spending, that's just how this story goes. You build us up just to knock us back down, and we just keep falling like dominoes.
That was a pretty great song. So, let's play the video now.
On January 7th, 2024, a strange video surfaced online. It's entitled Weird Minecraft Bugs, Bug Report Number 1. The clip was uploaded to a mysterious channel called The Decayed. At first, things appear normal. We're watching Minecraft gameplay of a user named SandyCarps8. He's on a multiplayer server with a friend named Cargoships. They discuss a recent adventure. Did you see when that spider dropped from the ceiling and almost killed me? Lol, yeah, that was pretty funny. We didn't really get too much stuff though. The players walk through the forest and reach their house, deciding that they need to go mining to get better equipment. In the basement, they drop off their wood in the storage room. Next, they head towards the mine. Cargo suggests going to Y=11 to strip mine, and the two work together to dig their tunnel deeper. After about a minute, their progress is halted when they tunnel into lava. Sandy suggests they come back later, and they return to the house. Then, something odd happens. Sandy and Cargo suddenly find themselves back in the forest. Initially, it seems like the video is looped, but Sandy's chats indicate that he has noticed it too. What? Why am I back here? Cargo's response is rather odd. Lol, yeah, that was pretty funny. We didn't really get too much stuff though. Cargo doesn't address Sandy at all. It's almost as if he's talking to someone that doesn't exist. And we realize that Cargo is repeating his messages from earlier in the video. Sandy asks if Cargo can hear him, but there's no reply. We watch as Cargo follows the same path from before, depositing his items in the chest and heading into the mine. All the while, he continues repeating the chat messages from earlier. The screen briefly goes black. Then we see Cargo mining near the bottom. This isn't funny, Cargo. You can stop now. Then a sudden cut. What? What happened to the mine entrance? Why is the music so weird? But things get even stranger when the video shifts perspectives to a different player. They have a dark skin and they're watching Sandy and Cargo from a hilltop. If we rewind the footage, we can see it in the second loop, observing from afar. This isn't the only difference between the two halves of the video. When Sandy and Cargo are teleported back to the forest, Sandy's hotbar changes. The stake and log swap places. Furthermore, the interior of the house is slightly different. There's no sign on the right-hand chest in the second loop. And if we look even closer, we'll find that Cargo's messages from the two loops don't align in time, even though the text is identical. We don't yet understand the reason for these discrepancies. In fact, we don't understand much at all. The video ends with a final static shot of the house, deepening the mysteries even further. This video was merely the entry point into the long and winding mystery of The Decayed.
The Decayed. Presented by...
The following day, another video was released, titled More Weird Stuff, Bug Report Number 2. It begins with what appears to be another loop. The players find themselves back in the forest. Now, Sandy has 3 experience levels instead of 2. As Cargo starts his dialogue once more, Sandy reacts with escalating confusion. This time, he doesn't follow Cargo, choosing instead to walk in the opposite direction. After a few moments, he encounters something strange, the edge of the world. Chunks are not loading here, there's nothing more than an empty void. This is similar to the end of the first video with the unloaded chunks near the mine entrance. It's almost as if Sandy's not supposed to be here. There's another detail that's easy to miss, a dark figure in the tree. While we can't quite make out their full name, it appears to end with an R. As Sandy returns to Cargo, the Minecraft music becomes increasingly distorted. Sandy descends into the mine, but it's different this time. Instead of a cave with lava, there's a long, empty tunnel. After following it for a while, Sandy discovers a narrow side tunnel without torches. The deeper he goes, the darker it gets, accompanied by a whooshing sound that crescendos. Then we're back to the start again for the fourth loop of the series. It is now nighttime. Cargo is nowhere to be seen, and his messages are conspicuously absent from the chat. The music is scrambled, clashing with a persistent wind noise. As Sandy returns to the house, we notice a staircase of blocks on top, perhaps built by the mysterious black figure who is now standing in a lilac bush. We can just barely make out their name. It's voyeur, a French noun meaning one who sees. Inside the house, Cargo's bed and chest are missing. The basement also has a slight difference. There's no sign on the bottom left chest. Intriguingly, this is the chest that Cargo last used. We saw him open it in the second loop. It seems that connections to Cargo are disappearing one by one. Returning to the mine, Sandy becomes increasingly distressed. "Cargo, I'm going to save you, no matter what." At the bottom, a dark fog obscures the tunnel depths. As Sandy progresses, strange black blocks appear on the edges, their density increasing the deeper Sandy goes. Then an eerie blue message appears. "I haven't talked to him in days. He hasn't played Minecraft with me for so long. I hope everything is alright. Where is he? Where is he?" Is this Sandy speaking? That doesn't quite make sense. To this point, all of Sandy's messages have been in the main chat. Instead, we're forced to consider the possibility that this is somehow Cargo. Is Sandy missing from his perspective also? This video ends with a shot of the house, just like the first video. This time, however, the door is open. Let's take a moment and attempt to untangle what's happening here. The videos so far contain a sequence of loops. They restart when Sandy is teleported back to the forest. However, each iteration is different. Sometimes there are minor changes, like a sign being removed. Other times, the changes are major, such as the tunnel in the mine or Cargo's disappearance. It appears that Sandy is supposed to follow a specific path in the loop. When he deviates too much, the chunks are not loaded. The first loop seems to go according to plan, with no anomalies. But each subsequent loop has one crucial difference. Sandy knows that he's in a loop. We don't understand why Sandy gains this awareness, or why Cargo apparently doesn't. But we do have to wonder, was the first video we saw truly the first time this happened? Or has this loop been repeating for a long time, with the story picking up just before Sandy breaks out of the cycle? It's intriguing that, once the loop breaks, the world begins to decay. Signs disappear, dark blocks are generated, and mysterious shadow figures arrive. Somehow, the stability of this place is damaged. Breaking the loop clearly has a significance that we don't fully understand. For now, we will continue to the third video, entitled Limbo. Before we dive in, let's take a brief look at the description. "Signals. Something is not right. He reached sentience. This is not supposed to happen. This is not supposed to happen. What will I tell him?" Is this talking about Sandy? Who exactly wrote this description? The video begins with the fifth loop. The world is daytime once again, but Cargo is still missing. The blocks on top of the house are also gone. On the main floor, there's a new painting on the wall. Sandy goes to the basement, and when he returns, the picture is changed. It's difficult to tell what it depicts. Maybe flowers? We quickly find the answer. As Sandy explores away from the house, he approaches a very similar cluster of lilacs overlooking the edge of the world. Comparing the two, we can see that this is the same place as the painting. It's almost as if it's telling Sandy where to go. Sandy looks over the edge and discovers something unexpected, invisible blocks in the void. He begins walking on them, moving into the white emptiness beyond. In the distance, a dark door becomes visible. "Well, guess I don't have an option." Sandy opens it, revealing swirling clouds within. As Sandy approaches, the wind swells. Maybe this was the source of it the whole time. The player enters the doorway. Sandy teleports to a completely different place, a realm of dark purple blocks with distant clouds. When Sandy tries to chat, he gets an error message. "Unauthorized access, chat function disabled due to lack of developer permissions." There's a similar warning at the top, this one instructing Sandy to restart their game. This new place has many hallways with entrances to other rooms, each labeled with a sign. Experiment, followed by a number. Sandy enters the room for experiment number 67801236. In the center of the room, there's a hole. Sandy jumps in. He teleports back to his world, but from a different vantage point. Now he's standing above his house on invisible blocks. Below, we witness something bizarre. Sandy and Cargo are walking around, discussing their need to go mining. This isn't a recording of the first loop because the timing is different once again. Instead, this appears to be a different loop altogether. We have no idea why there's a copy of Sandy and why Cargo is back. Sandy pushes a button in the sky and he's returned to the purple place. He goes to a different room, this one corresponding to experiment 892-30096. Jumping in the pit, he's warped to another version of his world. But this one's just a bit off. The usernames of the players are slightly different, SandyCarps26 instead of SandyCarps8. Cargo's name is also changed. Furthermore, the music has been transposed down a major second, increasing the uncanniness. The mine doesn't exist in this version, and the players talk about building a castle. Sandy comments in the chat,
Also, castle? I remember building a castle. Where's the castle? Was it never there?
Other experiments have much bigger changes than this one. Sandy returns to Limbo and warps to experiment 8389. Here, the sky is complex, infused with pulsing psychedelic patterns. The music is sweeping and full, unlike any Minecraft music we've heard before. And yet, the landscape appears to be similar in shape to the other worlds. There are once again two players below, Zyphoid and Serene Mist. This time, though, they notice Sandy.
Who in the is this guy? He's just flying above our house?
Sandy tries to respond, but again he doesn't have permission to use the chat. The players decide to leave. Sandy returns to Limbo and approaches another experiment, 1919. This one is ominously labeled Unstable. He teleports to a dark, empty world with no players in sight. When he tries to leave, the button is unresponsive. Sandy is apparently trapped. Just before the video concludes, there's another message in chat from someone named Execo4, who says,
Uh-oh.
The video ends with another static shot of the world. Come to think of it, what's the deal with each video ending with an image? The first video's image has the house. In the second, the door is open and the image is darker. Then the house is gone and the image is darker still. We don't really know what this means. The following video is called Meeting, and it starts back in the main world for the 6th loop. Somehow, Sandy managed to escape the unstable world. Sandy returns to the world edge and walks into the void, but this time the door is gone. He continues walking nonetheless, and suddenly finds himself back in experiment 8389. He reaches the mainland after a few moments. Sandy approaches Zyphoid and Serene Mist's house. Now he's able to chat. The players are bewildered as Sandy explains that he just walked away from his house and ended up here. Notably, Zyphoid and Serene Mist don't remember Sandy, even though they saw him in the air during the last video. This is interesting. It suggests that perhaps these players are also in a loop. How else would they forget an unknown player flying in their world?
True,
Sandy
true.
asks if he can stay to
true.
explore, and the players let him. They generously give him diamonds. As he wanders, Sandy sees another dark figure in a lilac bush, this one named Sightseer. The skin is slightly different from Voyeur. Back in the house, Sandy opens a chest labeled plants. Suddenly, there's a static sound and the screen goes black for a moment. When it returns, there's a slight difference. The 4 poppies in Sandy's inventory have been replaced with 4 lilac bushes. Then, out of nowhere, a message appears in chat from someone named Execo3.
Sandy. Sandy, you have to stop. You have achieved something you should not have achieved.
Despite Sandy's confused responses, Execo3 continues.
I got the signals from you. You are pushing the limits.
As Sandy tries to interject, Execo3 mutes him, preventing his messages from sending. Then Exec continues.
Why are you, out of everyone, acting like this? The fact you can even talk to me right now fathoms me.
Sandy tries to ask about Cargo, but Exec responds.
Your friend is not coming back, Sandy. He never even played with you.
Then the chat
I
shows
was
that
about to
O3
say
is
that.
warped
I
to
was
Limbo.
about to pause the video and say that.
The video switches, and we are now viewing the world from their perspective. The skin is dark and the UI is different, with a number 3 above the hotbar. Execo3 walks through Limbo and approaches the door to the unstable dimension. They jump in. As they type, a pink cursor is visible.
What's the crosshair? The crosshair looks kind of weird. It looks like could be.
Execo 3 walks through limbo and approaches the door to the unstable dimension. They jump in. As they type, a pink cursor is visible, the same design as Sandy.
Are you sure this is safe?
Execo 3 uses a command called TP down, which takes them to the surface. There we find Execo 7 as well as another dark figure called Spectator.
I mean, just in case, you should lock the world. I don't want this to reach Sandy.
Exec 3 says that Spectator seems to be working fine and asks how to lock the world. O7 replies with a command. The ID number is the same as the experiment number. O3 locks the world. Then he says something notable.
He somehow became a thinking mind, which is very interesting. His memories got wiped before we brought him to this world. That's very weird. Like I said, close the world just in case. This could trigger something in him if he joins.
And then suddenly, we see a message saying that an unknown exec warped to this world. Could this be Sandy? The video concludes with another static image of a house. It is returned, but it's darker than ever. There's a lot to unpack in this video. First, we are introduced to a different group of people than the regular players. These are the execs. They have special capabilities. They can use teleportation commands and mute other players. We also learn that they are associated with the dark watching figures, including Voyeur, Sightseer, and Spectator. While we still don't know the purpose of these dark figures, the way the execs talk implies that they're not players. It would be weird to say that a person seems to be working fine. Instead, there's some sort of automation or bot. What we do know is that these execs are trying to deal with Sandy. It's clear that Sandy is doing things he's not supposed to be able to do, accessing limbo and going to other players' worlds. Execo 3 says something interesting, that Sandy somehow became a thinking mind. While the deeper implications of that statement aren't yet revealed, it must be why the execs are concerned. But what about the experiments? What is the purpose of these loops, and what are the execs trying to do? We learn a bit more in the following video called Envoyeur. This is French for sender. The description contains an enigmatic series of 16 numbers. This video is taken entirely from the perspective of Execo 9, who we haven't seen before. They're in some new place, dark like limbo but made of prismarine blocks. They approach a chest labeled 9 and retrieve a book from within. As they continue down the hallway, we see several numbered rooms. Apparently, these each correspond to an exec. We see Execo 2 in room 2. The player walks until they reach number 9. The block in the center appears to be a terminal. In fact, if we look at the lines as dots and dashes, it spells out decayed in Morse code. Exec 9 begins typing in chat.
He's been lurking again. He was spotted in the unstable dimension. He found out about the real house. He knows too much now.
We can't see who Execo 9 is talking to. Their responses are invisible. Whoever it is, Execo 9 says that they may need to intervene. The execs aren't completely sure how to stop Sandy. This half of the conversation contains a little detail. O9 says that Sandy found out about something called the real house. Whatever this is, Execo 9 believes that it's too much knowledge for Sandy to have. This mystery about the real house is something we'll want to keep in mind as we continue. The following video is titled Réalité, which is French for, you guessed it, reality. We return to Sandy's perspective. They're back in the main world for the 7th loop. This time, Sandy types the teleport command to bring him to the unstable world. How Sandy knows this command is unclear. Did he use /help, or is there something else going on? Regardless, the command works. The console message reveals that it was, in fact, Sandy who teleported in the meeting video. He arrives at the bottom of the mine and climbs the stairs. Spectator is still there, but execs 3 and 7 are gone. He enters the house to find that the basement is totally different. Instead of humble storage chests, there's a door leading to a complex network of rooms. There's a kitchen area, several bathrooms, bedrooms, and a bar. In one room, Sandy stumbles across a red chest. Opening it reveals that it has a name,
Stored vessel information.
Inside are 4 written books, labeled June, July, August, and September. These are diaries written by someone named Matthew David. The first entry is on June 2nd, 2017, and there are a total of 17 entries over the 4 months. The early text starts out normally. Matthew writes about being busy studying for a math exam, which is getting in the way of Minecraft. We learn that Matthew is 17 years old. Then something weird. There's a sudden jump from June 4th, 2017 to June 7th, 2023, a 6-year leap into the future. But Matthew talks as if he's still in the past. He mentions stressing about being prepared for his test. Mysteriously, on June 21st, we go back in time to 2017. It's not clear if Matthew made a typo or if this journal has some weird nonlinearities. Regardless, the exam goes pretty well. Matthew says that he wants to play survival multiplayer with a friend named Andrew. They decide to start up a server. That's the end of June. Sandy makes a comment.
This is way too familiar.
He then begins reading the July book. Matthew starts by lamenting about how he's been sick for a couple of days. Then there's something intriguing.
I did see a weird creature in my game today, though. Could just be me going crazy. Even though me and Andrew are big fans of creepypastas, we obviously know that those are fake and that stuff like Herobrine, Entity 404, and all that doesn't exist.
On July 4th, Matthew mentions a persistent headache that's not improving. He also added a friend named Thomas to the Minecraft server. Now, 3 of them are playing together. Then Matthew shares more about the creature he saw.
It kind of looked like a player, but it just doesn't make sense because we are hosting this on Hamachi, and I checked Hamachi a few minutes ago and there's no one other than us 3.
Yet he still doubts what he saw.
Actually, what am I even saying? No shot there's another player here. That had to be something else.
Between pages 9 and 10, there appears to be some text cut out.
We're currently working on an for all of us since we need to get some good enchants.
On July 10th, Matthew mentions that Andrew and Thomas have an idea to build a town with a castle. Then there's an update on the illness.
There's a little problem though. I'm not really improving in terms of my health. My head really hurts and my hands are constantly shaking. And if this keeps getting worse and worse, I'll probably have to take a little break from my computer. I don't know what's causing this exactly, but I'm afraid it might not be a flu anymore. It's been going on for way longer than it usually should.
1 week later, on July 17th, Matthew sees the player again.
He seemed to have a white 03 on his head, while the rest of his skin is fully black.
Matthew has seen an exec in his world. A black skin with a white number is their signature style. But this is the least of the issues. Things are getting worse for Matthew's health. Now, weird red spots are showing up on his skin. Matthew will be going to the doctor soon. In the meantime, he continues to play with his friends.
My friends have no idea what it might be either, which worries me because they also started to become a bit sick. They're not in the same state as me, but they also have a small headache. Is this a coincidence, or is something going on?
July 22nd.
What? The doctors have no idea what this could be. I'm scared. My friends are saying they feel the same things I did 2 weeks ago. Apparently, a lot of teenagers across the world are somehow catching this disease or whatever the it is. I genuinely do not know what's happening.
By this point, Matthew has been sick for over 3 weeks, and his vitality continues to decline. 4 days later, he says he barely has enough energy to play on the computer.
After playing for a few minutes and working on a mob spawner farm, I saw him, the 03 guy. He was just standing there staring at me, and he wasn't moving at all. He sent no messages in chat, but I somehow felt him speaking to me, as if he was speaking to me telepathically. And that's when I connected the dots. This cannot be a creepypasta anymore. He has to know what's happening, and he did this to me. This might sound insane, but I think the disease is being spread among our group, and the fact he just stares at me like that, he knows. I immediately closed my game and shut the server down. I have to tell this to my friends. This cannot be a coincidence.
Sandy opens the August book. Matthew can no longer feel his hands. He has problems breathing, and he has the constant urge to vomit. He says that soon he won't be able to get out of bed. Then something chilling.
My parents are more worried than ever, but something inside of me tells me not to care about, not to talk to them, to not listen to them. But I want to, even though my body refuses to.
Matthew's text is becoming riddled with errors, extra spaces, missing words, misplaced punctuation. He even fails to properly sign his name. His skin grows pale except for the red spots. His mother cries, fearing that Matthew is near death.
As I'm writing this, I feel an indescribable feeling flowing through my body. A mixture of emptiness, sadness, pain, loneliness.
Matthew's words grow even more disordered, bizarre, and incomprehensible.
Beg farewell to shattered bones, bones that shape your interior, bones that make you who you are, bones like the water of a river flowing towards destiny. It's pulling me. It wants me to reach it. It wants me to get closer to it. I don't ever feel my interior emptiness anymore. I don't ever feel anything anymore. My keyboard is pulling me closer to my monitor. He's calling me whoever he is. In a matter of seconds, you just may find yourself falling, twisting into the abyss, screaming, wishing it didn't end like this. But the inevitable things come and go as they choose, and in the end, you will always lose. So sit back and relax as death swoops you down.
The final entry is from September 13th, 2017.
And now forever I will make part of it, attempting to run from what I can't escape. I can never outrun it. The limbo I'll be stuck in is part of me now. 1 hour, 10 hours, 10 days, 10 years, 10 decades, 10 centuries, 10 billions of years. Forever, I am part of it. I am part of it now. I belong to it now. And it was decided like that from the beginning.
These journals are deeply unsettling. We don't know who Matthew David is, whether he's a player we've already met or someone new. However, there are some similarities to Sandy's story, playing on a multiplayer server and encountering odd players in the world. Notably, Execo 3 is the same exec who talked to Sandy in the meeting video. But much more concerning is the fact that Matthew has some sort of disease. It starts as a headache but worsens over the course of about 10 weeks. Doctors can't diagnose what's happening, and the text suggests that this is afflicting other people as well. Matthew believes that this is connected to Execo 3. As time passes, Matthew's text becomes increasingly poetic, dark, and jumbled. He describes a deep emptiness inside of him and a feeling of being called towards his computer monitor. The final pages are extremely cryptic. It's unclear if Matthew is alive or dead. Sandy returns the books to the chest. He turns around to see Cargo standing in the room.
Hey man, Cargo, how are you here? I was looking for you. I don't think we should be here.
Something about Cargo is off. His text is overly formal, with punctuation and capitalization, a very different style from his earlier messages. Sandy instinctively knows that something is wrong. This can't be Cargo. Sandy begins to flee. Then Cargo continues.
Sandy, come back. We can talk about this.
As Sandy runs into the mine, we get one final message.
You will regret this moment. You will always be the mistake known for ruining everything.
The following video is from a new perspective, someone with a reddish skin and
I just want to point out what Cargo said. Cause that's what your wife said to you. Anyways, let's start. I just had to make that joke. Don't type all cap or your message will get deleted.
no number above the hotbar. When they type, we learn that this is someone named Architect. The conversation is one-sided. However, the title of this video is Recepteur, French for receiver. Could this be the other half of Execo 9's conversation? Watching the videos together, the chat messages align, revealing the full discussion. We learn that the Architect is disappointed in the execs. To keep Sandy out, all they had to do was lock the world. Ultimately, Architect tells the execs to figure it out on their own. Apparently, there are 64 of them in total. Architect walks away from the terminal, leaving Execo 9 talking to the void. The description of this video contains text that's almost readable, like a Markov chain of disparate syllables. There are 16 lines, the same number found in the Envoyer description. It turns out that this is a code. By counting out the indicated position of a letter, we can find the first character. Repeating this for each line reveals the message.
Body lacking a soul.
Although this is enigmatic, there's a subtle connection to Matthew David's journals. As his disease progresses, he describes a feeling of becoming empty inside. There's another link as well. The name of the chest is Stored Vessel Information. A vessel is a hollow container, also empty inside. It's noteworthy that we've seen this concept a few times. The following video returns to Execo 9's perspective, picking up right after their conversation with Architect. Another exec shows up. This time it's number 22. 9 says that the Architect wants all of the execs to work on the bugs relating to Sandy. They say that they need to shut down some of the worlds. Execo 9 opens up the terminal and enters a numerical code. the same as the title of the book in their inventory. Access is granted. On the main menu, 9 selects the players option. This shows a list of dies, each representing a different player. When the cursor hovers over one, it reveals more information. Sandy's location is undefined and his capability is sentient. Xiphoid and Serene Mist are both in the 8389 world, and their capability is Thinking Mind. Finally, there are many other players who we haven't seen before, all of whom have their capability as Vessel. Vessel. There's another connection to that word. Most players on this list are vessels, marked with the gray icon, contrasting with the 3 colored players. This suggests a progression in capabilities from Vessel to Thinking Mind to Sentient. So how did Sandy progress from Vessel to Thinking Mind? The description offers a few clues.
Execo 3 found a critical flaw in the system of the universe of the Decayed. Somehow, vessels, when stimulated in some weird way, have the capability of escaping their supposed trajectories and finding oddities that they were not supposed to find, such as the map being unfinished in certain areas, invisible platforms that allow teleportation between worlds, and a lot more.
In other words, we don't know for sure,
Don't
and it seems like the
get-
execs don't know either. The description
Wait,
continues.
wait.
Do you know how Sandy managed to gain consciousness? No.
It's sad to see a guy. I should. Nightbot auto timed out you. How does it feel? Wait, let me turn off auto caps from Nightbot. Spam protection, blacklist word enabled, excess caps. Yeah, disable. Excess emotes disable. Yeah, now it's okay. Now you can type everything in all caps.
I really don't. Definitely a flaw in the system. I make sure to wipe everyone's memories before they enter this universe, and I'm not quite sure what escaped their hands.
But now, we see that Sandy isn't just a thinking mind. He's been elevated to sentience. In fact, it seems that the execs were afraid of this happening, contrasting with the 3 colored players.
Universe of the Decayed 3 found a critical flaw in the system of the universe of the Decayed. Somehow, vessels, when stimulated in some weird way, have the capability of escaping their supposed trajectories and finding oddities that they were not supposed to find, such as the map being unfinished in certain
Why?
areas, invisible platforms that allow teleportation.
Container, also empty inside. It's noteworthy that we've seen this concept
From
a
here.
few times. The following video returns to Execo 9's perspective, picking up right after their conversation with Architect. Another exec shows up. This time it's number 22. 9 says that the Architect wants all of the execs to work on the bugs relating to Sandy. They say that they need to shut down some of the worlds. But this is a cut to figure it out on their own. Apparently there are 64 of them in total. Architect walks away from the terminal, leaving Execo 9 talking to the void.
From here.
The description of this video contains text that's almost readable, like a Markov chain of disparate syllables. There are 16 lines, the same number found in the Envoyer description. It turns out that this is a code. By counting out the indicated position of a letter, we can find the first character.
The die
Repeating this
access.
for each line reveals the message.
Body lacking a soul.
Code wants all of the execs to work on the bugs relating to Sandy. They say that they need to shut down some of the worlds. Execo 9 opens up the terminal and enters a numerical code, the same as the title of the book in their inventory. Access is granted. On the main menu, 9 selects the players option. This shows a list of dies, each representing a different player. When the cursor hovers over one, it reveals more information. Sandy's location is undefined and his capability is sentient. Xiphoid and Serene Mist are both in the 8389 world, and their capability is Thinking Mind. Finally, there are many other players who we haven't seen before, all of whom have their capability as Vessel. Vessel. There's another connection to that word. Most players on this list are vessels, marked with the gray icon, contrasting with the 3 colored players. This suggests a progression in capabilities from vessel to thinking mind to sentient.
Yes.
So
yes.
how did Sandy progress from vessel to thinking mind? The description offers a few clues.
Execo 3 found a critical flaw in the system of the universe of the Decayed. Somehow, vessels, when stimulated in some weird way, have the capability of escape.
Okay. Sandy could be. That's a theory. But Sandy could also be one of the friend of that dude. And could be friend or could be anyone else, but yeah, who encountered the same thing. And I'm thinking, yeah, it feels more like Maze Runner to me right now. So yeah, it could be like DM could be like Cargo, and Sandy could be one of his friend or something. We're gonna see a Minho. Yeah, we could see a Minho after a few moments. Okay, let's continue.
Escaping their supposed trajectories and finding oddities that they were not supposed to find, such as the map being unfinished in certain areas, invisible platforms that allow teleportation between worlds, and a lot more.
In other words, we don't know for sure, and it seems like the execs don't know either. The description continues.
Do you know how Sandy managed to gain consciousness? No, I really don't. Definitely a flaw in the system. I make sure to wipe everyone's memories before they enter this universe, and I'm not quite sure what escaped their hands.
But now we see that
Okay.
Sandy isn't.
So he did say he wiped their memories before they enter. So according to that, it could be DM, but still a 50-50 chance. Could be his friend too. Could yeah, or the admins, I guess.
Just a thinking mind. He's been elevated to sentience. In fact, it seems that the execs were afraid of this happening. In the meeting video, Execo 3 mentions that Sandy has become a thinking mind. They don't want him in the unstable world because
Yeah,
it might trigger
The
something
architect
within
is
him.
describing.
However,
but
Sandy does teleport there. In Execo 9's discussion with the architect, we learn that Sandy found out about the real house and now knows too much. Then, in this video, we see that Sandy is sentient. We now understand that the real house refers to the house in the unstable world. When Sandy found it, something promoted him from thinking mind to sentient. Could it be the journals? It's been mentioned a few times that Sandy's memory has been wiped. Perhaps reading Matthew's story somehow reminded him of the past. The specific details are still a mystery. The core point, however, is that Sandy has steadily progressed along the chain from vessel to thinking mind to sentient. And now, other players are on that path as well. Xiphoid and Serene Mist are thinking minds. They've escaped their supposed trajectories, breaking free of the loop. And it seems that this happens when Sandy has a conversation with them. Sandy is spreading the ability to think to others. All of this represents a problem for the execs, who are trying to get the players under control. Back in the video, Execo 9 right-clicks on the three players' icons, reporting them to the architect. Then 9 goes back to the main menu and selects Worlds, then World Management. The top block is the 1919 world, the unstable one with the real house. The exec changes the join permission from admin to none. They perform an attempted teleportation to confirm the world has been locked. In the back, exec 13 appears and asks if O9 turned off access to the real house world. 9 confirms that they did. Then they return to the terminal and choose a different option, global cameras. We see a list of lilac items. Hovering over one shows that this represents Sightseer, currently in Xiphoid's world. And suddenly, we understand the purpose of these dark figures. They're cameras into the experiments. The execs can see the camera feed from the terminal. As O9 starts watching, we see Serene Mist come up and look at Sightseer. They stare for an uncomfortably long time. The audio is quite weird, and fans of my other ARG videos knows that this means it's time to look at it in a spectrogram. This tool allows us to see frequencies and sounds. The x-axis represents time, and the y-axis is frequency. The higher the sound's pitch, the higher it is on the chart. For example, an ascending major scale would appear as a series of steps going upwards. Looking at the camera audio, we discover a secret message hidden within.
Ying in my bed, unable to move. I can't get up. I can't even blink. Everything hurt.
The words feel similar to the text in Matthew David's journal, although this specific quote is nowhere to be found. Could these be the words of Serene Mist instead? Exec-09 leaves the camera and encounters Exec-05. He asks what they're supposed to be doing, and 9 says that they're investigating Sandy. When he hears that, 05 says that he's gotta go and runs off. The chat shows that he's warped to the unstable world. 9 returns to the terminal to find that the teleportation permissions have reset. Apparently, Exec-05 just changed it back. Confused, 9 talks to Exec-35, who says that locking the real house world doesn't work for them either. Then 9 follows 5 to the unstable world. They run to the house and enter the basement, but things are beginning to change. Blocks are replaced with solid colors, some rooms completely consumed. 9 descends into the big tunnel and then the narrow one. He finds Exec-05 taking Matthew David's diaries out of the chest, destroying them in a lava pit. When he sees that 9 is there, 05 punches him and flees back into the tunnels. After a few moments, the chat shows that 5 is warped to an unrecognized map. The video cuts to a white world with a table. Exec-05 walks up and looks around. This must be the unrecognized map. We don't know why, but apparently 05 is concerned that the other execs are investigating Sandy. There is one more clue that I need to mention. The description contains a question.
Where is cargo?
The response is a jumbled mess of letters. These are encoded using a scheme known as Base 64. Upon decryption, we can find the answer to cargo's whereabouts.
He is gone. Forever. Never to be seen again. Nothing more than a memory.
The next video is entitled Disposal, and it returns to Sandy's perspective. He finds himself falling down a long shaft before landing on a tree. His friends are nowhere to be seen. Sandy explores this new place. The layout is large and confusing, with many rooms and barred windows. There are several paintings scattered throughout. A lilac, a landscape, a white world, limbo. One was particularly notable. It has a painting of the real house, and if we look carefully, the layout of the room itself is similar to the house's interior. This includes the stairs to the basement, but this version overlooks the void. As Sandy continues to wander, it becomes apparent that this place couldn't actually exist. The space doesn't operate logically. This is perhaps most noticeable when Sandy enters a hallway that contains a jukebox. Sandy takes the stairs and loops around, ending up at the jukebox again. But that shouldn't be possible. Where's the entrance that Sandy used? This looping path is what's known as non-Euclidean. Normal geometric rules about space and distance don't apply here. Suddenly, the jukebox begins playing a song, Ward by C418. Sandy returns and punches it, causing the block to disappear. This action changes the configuration of the room again. Instead of ascending stairs to the right, there are now descending stairs going into a long tunnel. Sandy follows it and ends up under the tree in the main courtyard. He turns around. When he looks back, the tunnel is gone. Sandy goes to the redstone lamps and switches the first off and the third on.
Script.
As he wanders more, he ends up on the other side of the wall. But something's wrong. The lights are incorrect. The pattern doesn't match what it should on the other end. Did someone flip the switches? Sandy walks towards the edge of the world, and this video ends. The following video picks up right here. Sandy continues to meander until he finds a lever labeled Emergency Switch. As he contemplates what to do, we hear footsteps in the background. Sandy quickly pulls the lever and the world cuts to black. Suddenly, Sandy is in the unrecognized map. We see Exec-05 with the table in the distance, and we learn something interesting.
I see you have found the emergency switch. I have a lot to tell you, Andrew.
Sandy's real name is Andrew, the same Andrew mentioned in Matthew's journal. Furthermore, Exec-05 reveals that his name is Thomas, another player from the SMP. This leaves just one remaining player, Matthew, who must be Cargo. The journal we read belonged to Cargo, who was the first to contract this mysterious disease. Exec-05, or Thomas, gives us the most complete explanation so far. A few years ago, there was some weird sickness that appeared. It infected Matthew, Cargo, and Andrew, Sandy. Thomas says that people who are afflicted
See,
by
I
the
was
illness
right.
are called vessels. These vessels are forced to play the same few minutes over and over. Sandy, Cargo, Serene Mist, Xiphoid, all of them fall into this category. Vessels aren't actually the people with the sickness. Instead, they're kind of like ghosts who control the lifeless bodies, their consciousness scattered across different worlds. Loops and vessels all exist in a multiverse called the Concept. Execs are the ones who manage it, and Thomas was hired as one.
Thomas.
The execs work for the architect, who is the
Thomas.
creator of the worlds in the Concept. The execs watch the experiments. If a vessel gains consciousness, they put a camera in the world to monitor it. This is why Andrew, or Sandy, saw Voyeur in his world. His growing consciousness triggered the execs to intervene. When Exec 09 saw that Andrew was sentient, he alerted the architect, who teleported Andrew to the disposal. This is a place where vessels who have become sentient are sent to be removed. However, Thomas anticipated this and opened the door to the emergency switch, allowing Andrew to escape. Despite this explanation, some questions remain unanswered. What is the connection between a physical human and a vessel in Minecraft? Does the consciousness of the person somehow get trapped within the game? Matthew's journal seems to hint at this. He says something is pulling him, calling him, and then later says that he's a part of it now, whatever it is. In some bizarre way, the end result of the physical illness might mean getting sucked into the Concept. The role of the execs is somewhat unclear. They focus on preventing vessels from becoming sentient, but the reason for this isn't obvious. Why is it better for vessels to be trapped in their looping worlds? It's also a bit strange that the architect constructed the worlds in which the vessels are trapped. Thomas says that a symptom of the
Okay, here's my theory. It's not an exact theory. I'm just trying to make up a story of my own. So the thing could be this architect isn't real architect, like an engineer and also an architect like that. And what he does, he makes electronic devices. That could be one thing. I'm saying again, it's my own theory. I'm not saying it's gonna be exact to the thing which you are gonna see. Even though which I said got true later on about the Andrew and Matthew thing, I didn't know how it got true, but yeah, it was just my opinion. And now the thing is, I feel like this architect is an engineer, and he develops electronic devices in such a way that he can drag people who are using this device, mostly teenagers, because teenagers are best for doing experiments and stuff, the sacrificial lamb, if you know what I mean. And what he does, maybe he develops those electronic devices in such a way that these people who, whenever they try to use those devices, they use for their personal uses and stuff. But the thing is, it slowly starts to manipulate their mind. Yeah, yeah, slowly starts to manipulate their mind. Like, you know, the mechanical thing. There's one thing called low pitch sound. It's a quite complex thing, but if you throw very low pitch sound to a person constantly, that person wouldn't recognize that it's there. But the thing is, you can somehow make them feel a bit sick if you want. But technology isn't there, it's just a theory. But yeah, so that from that theory, that architect could be the person who actually invented a thing that helps them get dragged into the electronic device in such a way that they become vessel. And while that process, their brain gets wiped, and maybe this Matthew and Andrew, they too were exceptions, because that process didn't happen fully. That's my logic. That's what I think. So let's play the video again.
sickness is being forced to replay the same few minutes over and over again. But how could this happen without the architect creating the worlds for the vessels to loop? Could the illness even exist without the concept? And this raises a crucial question. If the architect designed the looping worlds, did he also create the disease? Where would vessels go if there was no concept? It's also worth mentioning that each world in the multiverse is labeled as experiment. That feels a little bit more like these vessels were created intentionally. Right now, we don't have a great answer to these questions. Thomas's story feels incomplete, like we aren't being told everything. Regardless, Thomas continues, telling Andrew what he needs to do.
If you want Matthew back, you need to go back to your loop. I will enable Matthew to possess Voyeur. Voyeur will be out of order and replaced with Matthew's vessel. From there on out, it's you. You know how to get out. You know how to get to the limbo. That's the key place you can go to get out. You might need to find Architect. He might seem intimidating at first, but he's really not. If you could talk to him, you might be able to escape. He's the one who put you in this situation, so he can take you out of it.
It's strange that Thomas suggests that Matthew and Andrew might need to talk to the architect, since the architect is upset that Andrew is sentient. However, Andrew says that he trusts Thomas. He pushes a button and he is teleported to the main world. Everything seems to be back to normal. Cargo's chest and bed have returned, and the basement is back in its original state. Andrew sees Voyeur on the hill and approaches him. The possession has apparently worked. Voyeur now speaks as Matthew. He says that he knows Andrew and that he remembers the house. Andrew tells him that the dark figures he saw in his journal were real, and that they're the reason for all of this. Andrew has been trapped in a loop without realizing it. But in the following video, things take a turn. It's called A Message to You. It's from Architect, and it's addressed to us, the viewers of this channel.
Hello, this is Architect speaking. I'm sure you know who I am, viewer. I seriously discourage you from further watching the content on this YouTube channel.
Alright, that's it, I guess. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day. Nah, just kidding. Let's continue.
Everything you have seen so far is a mere act
I
of
was like,
fiction.
what the
I
fuck
don't know
just
who is in
happened?
charge of uploading all of these videos, but I am unable to remove the content from it. This is not what the concept is about. These videos are fabricated, and their only intention is to make you believe them, to make it look like I'm the bad person here. Keep that in mind if you do want to continue watching. Do not believe anything posted here. Farewell.
This message forces us to consider something we hadn't really thought about. Who is uploading these videos anyways? Let's poke around the channel itself to look for clues. The profile picture is a collage of a few images put together, one of which is X-Echo5 in his world. But there are other things too, such as a tree and a lilac bush. Portions of the image have inverted colors. We can fix this using the power of editing. Nonetheless, we can't quite understand everything in this image. Another place to look is the channel description,
power
which
of
contains
editing.
a poem of sorts.
Doing and doing and doing without a reason, without a consciousness, without a change, without an end. Is there ever a day we will see the end of the tunnel? Or will we just remain, watching life walk right past us?
In one sense, this poem is probably referring to vessels, the players who are trapped and forced to replay their world again and again. But if we take a step back, it feels like this poem could be a commentary on life itself. We repeat our routines over and over, endlessly going through the motions, doing and doing and doing. And in this process, there are things missing, without reason, without consciousness, without change, without an end. These without suggest that there's a void within us. The unending monotony of routine leads to emptiness inside. The poem concludes with a powerful question. Will we ever be able to escape this loop? Can we fill the void by being conscious, by thinking and reasoning, by changing? Or will we continue doing and doing and doing forever, watching as life passes us by? This poem is thought-provoking, and it opens the door to an idea that maybe there's a deeper symbolism within this series. Do these vessels somehow represent us, trapped within our own loops? If this interpretation is correct, then who are the execs who manage the loops? When Matthew escapes and becomes sentient, the execs try to put him back. They would prefer it if he was looping forever. Who wouldn't want us thinking for ourselves? Despite these new possible interpretations, we still haven't quite found who is uploading the content on this channel. However, previous descriptions do seem to suggest that whoever it may be is active in the world and is able to affect it.
He somehow found his way out of his world. I have to talk to him.
But the uploader also talks to us, the viewer. In the description of the message video, we find a simple command.
Keep watching.
So that's what we'll do. The next video continues with Matthew and Andrew, showing Matthew's perspective as voyeur. The two are in limbo when Andrew leads them to the 8389 world. Sandy tells Cargo to use the TP down command, though it's again unclear how Sandy knows about this. On the surface, they meet up with Serene Mist. She says that she doesn't know where Zyphoid is. Andrew asks if Serene is aware of the execs, but she says that she isn't. Although Andrew tries to explain the situation, Serene doesn't understand. Nonetheless, she does agree to go with them to Limbo. They tower up to the button and press it to warp. Upon arrival, the players realize that Matthew now has his old username Cargo Ships, not Voyeur. His skin is apparently half him and half Voyeur, although this is not visible from the first-person perspective. Andrew brings the group to the unstable world and they teleport. The real house is even further decayed, with colored blocks spreading to the exterior. They notice a spectator camera watching them, but there's nothing the players can do about it. Inside, the basement is missing furniture and lights. They descend into the tunnel, heading to the chest room, but the diaries are missing, destroyed by Thomas. Andrew reacts with confusion. They decide to head back up to the surface. But when the group reaches the basement, Thomas is there. He says he's here to report on the world status, but it's an excuse to meet up with the other players. Thomas admits to burning the diaries, but doesn't explain why. Instead, he tells the group that they need to return to Limbo.
There's something for you if you jump into the void. You'll appear in a different place, but it's odd. No, it's simply a back door Ark added in case you fell down.
He then says something unusual. Once the players get back, they'll be able to see the diaries for themselves. Thomas teleports the group to Limbo once again. They approach the edge of the void. As they debate who should jump first, someone punches Matthew, and he falls. The following video is entitled Abgrund, which is German for abyss. The description includes a few German words. A quick Google search reveals that this is an excerpt from a poem by Wilhelm Busch, a 19th century poet. It is entitled Impending Doom. Let's read a translation.
The flies are having a fun, airy dance. The frog thinks, cheer up, you'll come down soon enough.
The poem is quite foreboding. So too is Abgrund. It's extremely dark. We'll notice that Matthew's cursor is changed to a star symbol. The players wander around this place for a few minutes, encountering arches and dilapidated structures. After a while, Matthew talks for the first time.
We've been walking for so long, this place freaks me out.
Andrew attempts to reassure him.
Don't worry, we'll find it eventually. He wouldn't just send us here to die.
The players find another building and enter it. Matthew sees a doorway. He decides to go through it. There is something very strange on the other end, his house suspended in a dark void. The next video is called Loss of Control, and it returns to the world of the architect. Now we can see that there's a red side and a blue side. There's a group of 7 players sitting around a table. The blue side has founder, creator, shaper, and instigator, and the red side has author, inventor, and originator. Architect shows up late to the red side and is promptly called out by originator.
You took your time.
The purpose of this meeting is to discuss issues in Architect's worlds. Creator says that the anomalies were located in his quadrant. Architect says that he's fully aware and is taking care of it, but author and founder disagree.
You don't seem to be as aware as we'd hope.
Founder then says that they've received signals from the Abyss.
The vessel you call Sandy Carps 8 along with cargo ships and Serene Mist. All 3 were caught by one of our execs, the Outcast.
Architect dismisses their concerns.
The Abyss is a barren wasteland. There's nothing they can do.
But Instigator says that Architect is wrong, mentioning that recent data shows that Sandy has been separated. Now he's in a place called Grinsen. This is German for borders. Creator says this means they're getting closer.
What do you think happens when they reach the last layer?
Then Author turns up the heat on Architect.
If you don't send your workers to capture them, then, well, I'm sure you can figure that last part out. Don't make us have to interfere, is what I'm trying to say.
Architect says he'll get them and leaves. This sequence is really interesting for a few reasons. First, we learn that Architect works with people besides just the execs. He's not an all-powerful being. Instead, he has to answer for his failures. And it seems like he's actually pretty bad at his job. During the conversations, it's repeatedly shown that he doesn't really understand the situation very well. the others seem to think that it's a much bigger deal than he does. We also learn that there are both red and blue people here, and they're presumably on the same team. However, their roles and purpose remain unclear. We now know that the place Andrew ended up is called Grinzen. We see it firsthand as the video continues, now back to Andrew's perspective. He's in the house, the exterior is pitch black. Andrew enters the basement. When he comes back up, he notices that there is now a castle in the distance. Andrew explores it for a while. On the outside edge, there's a trapdoor with a ladder leading down into the blackness. As Andrew descends, he cries out,
Where is it? Thomas, I thought you were helping me. Thomas.
Then the video ends. In the following episode, we switch to the perspective of Serene and Matthew, who have been waiting for Andrew's return. In the distance, a figure approaches. Their name is Exec 111, and they have white skin with black numbers. 111 says that he doesn't work with them.
Abgrund, as you can probably tell, imitates the bottom of the ocean. The abyss is a layered network. It's beneath the entirety of the concept.
Then an astute observation.
You've probably been through a bunch of dialogue already. I'm sure you're quite tired of it.
That we have, Exec 111, and that we are. But we're not done yet. 111 says that Andrew probably went to Grinzen, which is the next layer of the network.
It can be accessed in a multitude of ways. However, the path your friend took is incredibly risky.
There is a safer route. By going to the flat area in the distance, they can reach a main location. They'll know because there are a bunch of towers scattered around. The players leave on their journey. The following video is called Grinzen. It picks up with the duo seemingly close to their destination. In the distance, they spot several dark towers. Each player explores one, but both come up empty. They then head to a much larger central tower. Inside is a hole. They debate if they should jump in and decide that it's the only path. They do a countdown and take the leap. The screen goes to black. And, well, that's it. At least for now, this series is still ongoing. I think The Decayed is unique and high quality, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Normally at this point in the video, I do a deeper analysis, but instead I will wait for more episodes to release. Hopefully I'll make an update once the series progresses more. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe. It lets me know to make more content similar to this. And if you would like to support me further, join as a Deep Diver channel member. The link is below the video. I want to give a shout out to Kunai, who also covered this channel. They offer a different perspective, so check out their videos and subscribe to them too. We'll go ahead and end with that. This has been Retro Gaming Now, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great day.
I was eating, so I couldn't talk. Says the one who suggested it first. Ha. Wait. But you did realize there are. I was, I guess, partially correct. I have to edit my theory a bit. as I didn't know that no, yeah. As I didn't know that there are like more members, so but one interesting thing, let me step back a bit.
Instigator, and the red side has author, inventor, and originator.
You see, there's someone called inventor. So yeah, my theory could also be correct. Yum yum. Let me drink a bowl of water, mate. Well, done drinking bottle of water and wait. Mm, what's the channel name? Okay, so which one was the last one he showed? Bro, help me out. Was that this one? Anybody here?
He doesn't know where Zyphoid is. Andrew asks if Serene is aware of the execs, but she says that she isn't. Although Andrew tries to explain the situation, Serene doesn't understand. None
Me out.
Andrew attempts to reassure him.
Don't worry, we'll find it eventually. You wouldn't just send us here to die.
The players find another building and enter it. Matthew sees his house.
Oh, the last video's loss of control. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 videos after that. Bro, are you there?